Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Yep. To Sarah Brewski's credit, she's the R plus trainer that we had on. She was the one. She's the only one on our podcast or not in the R plus world who I've ever heard who called out the R plus world for not being more active and open in having these dialogues, because there's other dog training podcasts out there, and she says every time she's ever heard of like a pure positive trainer and a balance trainer speak, it was on the Balance Trainers podcast who they're the one who made the effort.
Right.
And so I do like where things are going even in that sense, and I do like that there's almost like pressure getting put on people, like, listen, nobody's telling you have to train this way or that way, but be a part of the conversation and mix it up a little bit, and to see what, and like you said, it's all about having the wherewithal to understand, this is what works, this is what doesn't, but also if you're going to take in all this new info, try it. I think that's another of the downsides from online training is somebody tries something for 2 days and then try something else for 2 days, and they just kind of stay trying new things and never really stick with something long enough to give it a real shot.
And you know what it is, Mariano? A lot of the purely positive or force-free world, they have this conception of we train a specific way or use a tool a specific way when it couldn't be further from the truth. When I spoke at the IACP conference last year, and there was a couple of big name purely positive trainers there. And after I spoke, one of them was Grisha Stewart, who's very big in the purely positive world. After I spoke, me and her talked, and she said, I'd love to sit down and talk with you and do something together, because I think she was probably shocked on the things I had to say.
Shocked.
Right. You're funny. Peruvians are all funny.
That's great.
Because I think, here's this guy who's known for e-collars, and I spent all 2.5 hours or 3, whatever it was, really harping on people using compassion for the animal and stopping the bullshit of mistreating the animal, and I think she was probably a little surprised by that. And I'd have a conversation with her any day. And especially when she was doing her presentation on BAT, I know things like that are always downlooked. I spoke up and I said, hey, just so you know, Grisha, that is something I use in my program. With aggressive dogs, I do use it, and she appreciated that very much. I don't shy away from things that the purely positive community do. I use everything. I am a lot more positive. I don't use a lot of compulsion in dog training. I just don't. Very little. If I have to use it, I use it. But the better you get at training dogs, the less punishment
the less you have to use it. I agree with you. I think what I've been saying for a little bit now is, the funny thing about like balanced dog training is a good balanced dog trainer is really not that balanced.
No, exactly.
It's more like a lot of motivational work and a few corrections here and there. And I tell my clients this when I don't know if you guys are like me, but a lot of times if a client's having an issue with correcting, it either has to do with their timing is off, so that they're not marking appropriately, so the dog doesn't get what the correction was for, or their timing is okay, but they're not correcting something like firm enough. And so the dog like gets it and just doesn't care or whatever.
And I prefer the term versatile trainer over balance trainer.
There you go.
And if you look on my website, I called myself a purely positive balance trainer bursting with versatility. And that came that there's a little thing behind that. I was having this conversation with the trainer, and they were a purely positive trainer, and they just wanted to fight. And they wanted to know, with your talent, why do you have to use e-collars, this and that? What kind of trainer are you? And so I'm a dog trainer. No, like what kind of trainer? They wanted me here to say something.
I hear you.
And I said, well, I'm a purely and what I told her was, I said, I'm a purely positive balance trainer bursting with versatility. And she was just, she was so pissed. And I used it from that day on,
Sounds like
stuck with it.
So that sounds like a commercial, like
exactly.
A purely positive balance trainer bursting with versatility.
But I've had people contact me and say, that's impossible. There's no such thing. I'm like, oh,
you're like, God. We're doing it. We're doing it.
Right. Let me show you.
Yeah. That's the modern dog trainer right there.
Absolutely.
That's
sure.
I had a question for you. So in that Sarah Brewski episode, we talked about kind of how Schitzen clubs have clubs, and you guys are able to share information and you get better and bounce off of each other. Agility has clubs. There's certain, in the working dog world, there's a lot of clubs where people can, well, in modern day, it's kind of dying off, but there is no pet dog training clubs, as we talked about. And so I have a nonprofit where our main mission is we train fosters, volunteers. We collect trainers in Los Angeles, and we pretty much ask trainers volunteer our time, and let's work together and let's help a collective of dogs. So I have relationships with over 20 rescue organizations here in LA.
Cool.
And this is something where, you know, that networking, that cross-pollination that we're really interested in starting. Obviously we're starting here in LA because that's where I'm located, but you know, this is something with the podcast. We've had so many people, so many trainers who are like, how can I help? Is there any way I can help? And I checked, and we can actually do stuff in different cities, and help animal rescues in need, dogs who've been returned. But I wanted to see if, you know, I'm not sure exactly the programs that we could create, but I just wanted to ask you for your support. If there's any support that you could give, whether it be speaking or whether it be, you know, just putting it on your Instagram or whatever.
Anytime.
It might be.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Bring me out, take me to Barrio Cafe. Absolutely.
Hell yeah. No, we would love that. We would love that, because and I'm just going to brainstorm it out loud for everybody. What my goal was to have mentor guest dog trainers in that local town, and have other volunteers come in, where pretty much all you have to do is volunteer your time for that week or for the hours that you could. And you can learn and work with other trainers, in hands-on helping rescue animals. Right.
Listen, imagine what you can do money-wise if you brought in 5 to 10 popular trainers that donated their time to come meet with a huge group of people to talk to them and work with dogs and stuff as a fundraiser. No charge.
Right.
Donate what you can. You know, things like that generate a lot of money.
Right.
You know, people love helping animals.
100%. Well, and money wise aside, I mean, all the money is just going to go to creating more events where we can cross pollinate and we can help rescue animals.
But that's exactly the point, you know, because
it can feed itself.
Right. Similar deal here was, you know, I work with the foundation here in Phoenix, and we throw different types of events, dog adoption events, of course, but also like golf tournaments and stuff like that to benefit different kinds of charities and things. And the point of the money is you do good with the money, you know, so then you bring it in, and then you use a little bit of the money to make the event even bigger next time. So you bring in more money and so on and so on. Right. And you help out more people.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always down, guys. Always.
Thank you, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that. So I wanted to talk a little bit back to the e-collar stuff, where e-collar, there's a lot of, talk to us about the hate, right? It's funny because you always approach, at least people who want to watch your videos, you always approach it and give it context and say, guys, it's a tool. We don't really, you shouldn't rely on it too much, right? Like, you're very clear about it versus other personalities on the internet. How much hate do you get, and how do you navigate that hate?
I don't.
Interesting.
I just don't. And here's why. I don't give them reason to.
Interesting.
You know, I've gotten more hate from the balance side of dog training than the purely positive side by far.
Wow.
Like not even close, you know, not even close, because you don't hear me calling out purely positive. I don't call out anyone by name.
Sure.
Normally when I'm pissed off and I'm bitching about something, it's about doing harm to the animal. Okay. And I don't see purely positive people physically doing harm to an animal.
Right.
And if I had to send one of my own dogs to a purely positive trainer that maybe doesn't have the capabilities of working with difficult dogs, or a so-called balance trainer who I know whoops the shit out of dogs, my dog's going to the purely positive trainer every time. Right? Plain and simple. Because the second someone mistreats my animal, I'm going to throat stomp you. I have no tolerance for it. I have no tolerance for seeing someone do bad things to a dog. I just don't. And it physically affects me. It really does. And before, I had to contain myself because of my job. You know, I had to have I had to be careful of everything I did and say because of my security clearance and what I did for a living. Now the gloves are off. I could be a fucking savage, and some people aren't going to like that. They're not going to like that. It's not going to be good for some people. So these people who like to run their mouth and talk about me and bring me up, I've always listened and I've taken notes. A lot of these people, they're stupid for doing that because I know a lot of shit they've done in the past. You know, I know people that have worked for them. I know apprentices, I know clients, and they're stupid for running their mouth because, you know, I kept my mouth shut for a long time. I just don't have tolerance for the mistreatment of the animal. I just
Right.
don't, you know, but no, I don't. I guess I get away from the original question. I really get very little hate, you know, and I think the biggest reason why is I show the work. I always
Yes.
show it, whether
Yes.
it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's sloppy, whether it's ugly. People want to see the real stuff. Out of the 500 and something videos I have, there's not a single video that I could watch where I could say, wow, that was awesome, or I didn't make any mistakes.
Right. You're always trying to get better.
I could show you a ton of things I could have done better, but that's why videos are so important. But so many people are scared to put videos out there because they don't want to be ridiculed.
Right.
And I understand it. I understand it because it sucks, you know, when people actually make YouTube videos about you and put your name in the title because they normally get 3 views on a video and they'll get 3,000 because they're bashing me. That sucks, you know, but what are you going to do? That's part of it. If you put stuff out there, you have to be willing to take it. You know?
We're in the same camp as you in that we're not really fans of naming names if it's something negative.
I don't do it.
I hear you. And especially in the case, if it's something negative, I just don't want to give them the free publicity.
Absolutely.
With that being said, though, something that's always amazed me is, and I ask this to every big, I mean, you've answered it already, but I just wanted to make you aware of this. I ask this to every bigger name online that we talk with. You know, do you guys ever get tired of the negativity, you know, balance wherever it's coming from? And it's a surprise, not that they get it, because YouTube is filled with nothing but experts, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it gets to them, every single one of them, you know, and I'm like, wow, I get, but you know,
sometimes,
right.
You know, 95% of the time you just laugh it off in a roll. It used to bother me a lot because I couldn't understand it. I'm like, why does this guy hate me? I'm like, I'm doing pretty good job here. I'm not scamming no one. I give my, and it used to bother me years ago. Now, like, there's times like yesterday, I called some woman a jerk off online. My wife's like right now appalled. And first of all, I didn't know it was a woman. By the name, I couldn't tell. But she just said something very sarcastic on one of my comments. And it was literally right after my puppy just threw up in his crate and was rolling around it on the way back from the vet.
You're like, no.
And so I'm already friggin' done.
Right.
I see this comment. And so that person, no matter what, was going to be a jerk off at that moment. You know, and so the timing of things, almost always you let things go and you don't even respond to it. But sometimes if you're in the wrong mindset, like I was at that moment, it's like, F you, this, you know what I mean? And you know what? I apologize publicly on the comment to her, and I apologize privately because I shouldn't have called her a jerk off, even though she was wrong on being sarcastic. I should have just ignored it. You know what I mean? But I'm human. I'm normal, and I have bad days. Mostly good days, but you come at me when I'm in a really bad mood, it's a whole different story, you know?
Right. Well, everybody, I mean, I think it's that weird, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Sure,
thing,
absolutely.
Right? That's how most people are. When you're just your normal self, you can brush off a lot of the negativity. But sometimes when you're already off center, it just takes a little push. And I find that so interesting, you know? I guess it's cool because it's humanizing to the big dog trainer names out there. You know, it's because the thing is, again, with this podcast being geared toward newer trainers, they're so afraid of it. They don't get backlash really because they don't have like a big following necessarily, but they don't put anything out because they're afraid of negativity. So they never get the big following. And so we tell them like, listen, man, everybody, like, you know, you're never going to please everyone. Do the best work you can to make yourself.
That's it.
To make yourself as free of it as you can possibly be. And not only for the sake of online, but for the sake of the dog and the client. But it's never going to work.
Yeah. And even if you're not posting stuff, videotape yourself and watch it. And
Yes.
analyze all the little things you're doing, because I guarantee you'll see things that you can do better. There's no doubt about it.
I couldn't agree more. That's something that I learned with COVID when all the shutdowns started.
Sure.
And right at that moment, it just worked out in the way that like all my board and train dogs were like older people who were nervous about doing the follow-ups after the board and train program.
Yeah.
So we transitioned over to onlines. And so I would do it on Zoom like this, and I would record the whole thing, and then I would send it back to them, so that when they're drilling and then they see me drilling and then they go back to drilling, they see the difference and they're like,
Nice.
oh, I see what I'm doing now. And I learned at that moment how important it is to see yourself from another angle.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I come from a performance background. I was like a dancer and a singer and a performer for many years when I was younger. And that's all we ever did was record, look, record,
Sure.
look, record, look. And that has helped me so much in kind of like just rinsing and repeating and fixing and adjusting in those fields, but definitely.
Well, I'm having a hard time understanding. Could you show us?
Yeah.
You stop. You stop it. That's a dark part of my path.
He's a good singer. He's a really good singer.
Really?
Follow me on my personal page. You'll see some songs that I put in.
Okay. Yeah. No, I will for sure.
Yeah, check it out.